Here's the pitch. Line drive, there it is! Into left field! Hit number 3,000! A run is scored! Musial ran first, on his way to second with a double! Holy cow!
Hank Gibson is one strike away from the no-hitter. He takes off his cap. He mops his brow. He looks in and gets the sign. He starts the windup. Here's the pitch, and it's a strike called! A no-hitter for Gibson! Smith corks one into right down the line. It may go! Go crazy, folks! Go crazy! It's a home run, and the Cardinals have won the game by the score of 3-2 on a home run by the Wizard.
Breaking ball, hit off the pitcher, to the third baseman, down play, base hit, 3,000 for a home run.
Breeze hits it in the air to center. We will see you tomorrow night.
Shooter from the belt to the plate, a swing and a miss, and that's the winner! That's the winner! A World Series winner for the Cardinals!
Left center, Bader, diving catch, what a play! Carpenter with a drive, into left center, at the wall, gone! It's gone! Three-run homer, Carpenter! DeYoung with a drive, into deep left, at the track, at the wall, gone! Cardinals have the lead! The 2-2. Fowler swings and sends the ball into the right field corner. Hayward up and over the fence. Hayward got a glove on it. But Dexter Fowler has just walked it off. Michaelis with a drive. Deep left field. First career hit. Gone! A home run. He does it in style. A two-run shot for his first major league hit. Julio to the drive. Into center. It's at the wall. Look it up. A remarkable comeback for the Cardinals. Here's a 1-2 pitch. And a strikeout. Ponce de Leon, his first strikeout in the major leagues. There he goes, and Molina from his knees. Oh, my! Wow!
Hi, I'm Miles Michaelis,
This is Marshall Falk,
and you're listening
and you're listening
to The Usual Suspects.
to The Usual Suspects.
Well, what's up, guys? I'm Brad,
And I'm Aaron.
and you're listening to The Usual Suspects. What is going on? How has your week been? Let me ask you guys that. I've been talking to a friend who has been having a pretty bad week, so keep him in your thoughts and prayers if you would, because that seems rough what he's going through. Aaron, anything new with you?
Well, I guess nothing overly significant. I just got back late last night. I played a rather large disc golf tournament that I've been looking forward to for like the entire year. It was up in Peoria. It's called Ledgestone. It's the Ledgestone Insurance Open. I played in the, I guess technically the highest level amateur division. There were 330 people in my division. Going into it, based on rating, I was rated 283 out of 330, so I was rated near the bottom, but I actually finished tied for 74th. So I had a pretty good weekend slinging some Frisbees around. So happy about the way I shot. The ratings update is tomorrow, so if this event gets put in correct or gets put in soon enough, my rating could go up quite a bit just from tomorrow. So for those of you that don't know what disc golf is, imagine golf, but instead of hitting a golf ball, you're throwing circles for fun. And then it's the same concept as golf. You're trying to do it in as little strokes as possible, but you're throwing into a basket that has a bunch of chains. It's the thing that I do for fun, and I enjoy playing tournaments and competing. Like, I've played sports growing up. I've always liked competing, and so like transitioning into adulthood, this is one of those things that I can still do and kind of compete at, and I don't have to rely on other people so much. that was the one thing about team sports growing up that I didn't like, was that like when I felt like I wasn't able to contribute or do anything, it kind of sucked. So in this one, the only person I can blame is myself. And so, yeah, as far as anything new, that's literally it. I played this disc golf tournament that I was super stoked about. It was like, there was over 2,000 competitors. It was awesome. We just missed the rain last night. Like, I finished, like, as it started raining. The professional cards, like, they had to cancel the last round because it was, like, really, really bad storms rolling in, like, during the round. And it got, like, there's a few photos floating around, but it got, like, mad crazy. There was, like, a bunch of lightning strikes, like, on the property. Like, it got real bad real fast, and I'm lucky that I was able to get out of there.
Yeah, you don't want to get caught out on a course in the middle of a thunderstorm or anything like that.
You can ask Jeff. We got in the car because I finished well enough to where I got my amateur payout, which was good for vouchers. So we were heading to the location to do that, but we ended up having to pull over and stop because there were like legitimately, like the first 5 or 10 minutes of the drive, there was like, we were kind of in the boons, so like we couldn't really stop anywhere. But once we got to like civilization, we had to pull over because there was like 2 or 3 different times where lightning struck, like, I crap you not, within like a quarter mile.
Yeah,
like we could see it in front of us and we're like, nope, not dealing with that.
Yeah, well, and anybody who's
it was really bad storms. Like, we were hearing like distant tornado sirens as we finished the round. We're like, can we please hurry up and get out of here?
Yeah, so you don't want to get caught out on an open course. Anybody who's watched Caddyshack knows
basically
what happens.
all I'm saying is that I didn't watch a whole lot of Cardinals baseball. I heard that we won 2 of 3 from the Royals.
We did.
Which we should.
Right. So real quick here, let's hit the socials, and then we'll dive in, and I'll kind of fill you in on what you may or may not have missed. All right, so you can follow me on Twitter at RangeBrad. You can follow Aaron on Twitter at AaronMSTL. You can follow the podcast on at usual_suspects. We go live. That's where we go live every now and then. Aaron and I will post something to the podcast account, just more specific to Cardinals baseball. Is very specific is what that account is.
Yeah.
We're also, as a lot of you probably already know, watching on Facebook. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/mutualsuspects. And then we're also on YouTube, and those of you who are watching on YouTube know it. You just Google search, or you just do a search on YouTube, Mutual Suspects. Make sure it says musial, not musical, and you'll find us. I think we're the only one, so that's pretty good. And then when you do that, if you would, please like and subscribe. It helps us grow and get more reach. We got a lot of people out here. We got Ryan's watching on YouTube. Then Charles is watching on Facebook from Huntington Beach, which is, I think, one of our farthest out people. And then Dakota says hey. So I believe the last time we talked, the Cardinals hadn't gotten swept by the Braves yet.
No, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't. Like, that doesn't really surprise me, which kind of sucks to say.
Yeah. Terry's watching on Facebook. Terry's watching on YouTube. Steve says, yo. What's up, Steve? So one of the things is when they were going into that series, I started looking at their roster, and I was like, yeah, the Braves roster says that they're under 500, or their Braves record says they're under 500 and not a very good team. But they made a lot of moves at the deadline, and they filled in spots that needed filling in. And they are a lot better team than what their record suggests. And so they came in and basically kicked our butts. So that's frustrating. I mean, we had a chance to win one of them and ended up pulling defeat from the jaws of victory. And then you get into a team like... I would have been happy if they would have taken one. I really wanted them to take 2 or 3. You need to take 2 or 3 from the Braves. A sweep would have been amazing, fantastic, but just not realistic. But I feel like they needed to sweep the Royals, and they didn't. And so that's kind of why I'm looking at the title here, and it says "All Things Must Pass." You know, we as Cardinals fans are we're a fan base that has been treated to a team that has been competitive, and has been a long time since we haven't had a competitive team, and we're starting to figure out what that looks like.
Yeah.
And I think what's worse is that even though we're not a competitive team, we're not a horrible team either. And we're just mediocre. And you kind of don't really have much to look at. So the Cardinals were at 500 going into the Braves series, went under 500, and then they came out just a little bit under 500. So they're right at 500. They're going to be at or above 500 at the end of the season. Just a little bit. Or maybe a little bit below. Of course, they haven't had a losing record in I forget how many seasons. But still.
It wouldn't shock me if they finished the year under 500.
Yeah. Now, I think if they finish the year under 500, it'll be a tremendous disappointment even from where we sit in this season, because you've got guys like Flaherty who's supposed to be coming back, and Michaelis who's close to coming back. Of course, today the news drops that KK goes on the IL with a shoulder issue.
Like, I mean, the pitching staff can't catch a break.
No.
The poor rotation is destroyed.
Yeah.
Like you better be hoping that Michaelis is about to join the rotation, and you better hope that Flaherty's right behind him, because holy crap, I'm waiting for the news to drop that Lester or Happ hurt themselves too.
Yeah,
like
I mean,
it's just it's getting to the point now where it's just comical. Like, you can't do anything but laugh. You're like, really, another one? Are you kidding me right now? Like, they're just dropping like flies in the rotation. Like, you've got Wainwright, who we've already talked about. Wainwright, like, he is exceeding expectations more than we could have ever expected. He is exceeding expectations, and that's fantastic. And then the rest of the rotation has been hurt.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
It's so rough.
Well, and I think that what really hurts a lot is that, yes, the rotation is hurt, but the fall off from the guys who are hurt to who we have to replace them is just such a large gap, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of teams, like, when you lose a guy, it's like, okay, well, next man up, and we got somebody who maybe isn't as good, but they can do a sustainable job of, filling in.
I mean,
here's
the thing:
impressed.
you're arguably your next guy up. Before going into this off season, your next guy up was traded to Colorado.
Right.
Like
For
that
Nolan
was really
Arenado.
like your next guy. Like, Ponce is kind of like in that realm too, where like he's made starts over the last couple of years, but like Gomber was probably your guy, but the trade off was you get Nolan Arenado. So it's like, yeah,
Right.
of course you make that deal like 10 times out of 10. Like,
Yeah, I don't think that there's any fan here or anybody in the chat or anywhere out there that would say, well, they shouldn't have traded to get Arenado. No, I don't think there's anybody that
you
says
100% make that move.
Right.
But like, you're trading they didn't just trade like some guy that was like, he might be able to make some starts next year. Like, no, Gomber could have probably been your 4 or 5 rotation guy. Like,
right.
You traded a guy that had an opportunity to make your rotation. Like, you didn't just trade some dude. And so now your depth is already being tested, and then you've got 4 of your 5 rotation guys that just aren't there.
Yeah.
So now you've got to make these other decisions, and like, okay, well, who do we call up? Well, you had Gant that started the year in the rotation. Now he's gone. Like, in reality, could you have thrown Gant back into the rotation right now? Yeah, you 100% could have. Does he have a walk problem? Yeah, so does everyone else in your staff.
Yeah.
It's not just a Gant problem.
Right.
Because here's the thing. At the end of the day, you know what Gant did do? Not give up runs. Somehow, I don't know how, but he didn't give up runs.
Yeah, it didn't make sense how he didn't give up runs, but he definitely didn't give up runs.
Staggering his leave percentage or whatever it was, like his stranded runners, like, oh my god, like, I'm like, this dude's ready to implode. He's about to give up like 9.
Right.
I don't understand what they're doing with the pitching staff. Like, and now the Happ and Lester deals are like whatever. At least those guys might stay healthy and
Yeah.
stay in your rotation for the rest of the year. Because every other guy they put out there gets hurt.
Yeah. I wonder maybe if the Hap and Lester move was to add a little age to the roster just in general.
Yeah.
I think it made sense financially speaking. I think that's the biggest thing that was driving it.
Yeah, they don't owe them a lot of money altogether.
So I don't know if then you get like two veteran former All-Stars. I don't know if Hap ever won a World Series, but Lester has won a couple. And you kind of get that experience into the clubhouse. Maybe there's some sort of just imbalance or craziness going on that we don't see. I don't know. Whenever Mike Schilt comes whenever he comes to the podium to talk, I don't like a lot of what he has to say. And I think I've been pretty obvious and pretty forthright with a lot of that on this podcast and then on the Cards and Coffee episodes and stuff like that. I think that he's doing a disservice to his guys by trying to defend them so much. But
it's like, there's just, and like, okay. Like we can go on about the pitching staff and like the injuries and how much that's hampered this team, because it has. Like, you'd be stupid not to acknowledge that, but like you have to be able to acknowledge this, and this is a positive thing. You guys remember this. There are guys offensively that are actually producing. Goldschmidt has been fine. Is he Goldschmidt of old? No. Is he still producing? Yes. Arenado's producing.
Yeah.
Harrison Bader's producing. Tyler O'Neill's producing. Dylan Carlson, if you look recently, has started to
he's starting
kick
to
it up
come
a
back.
notch. You've got guys on your team right now that are doing their jobs.
Right.
It's like you've got guys that are doing their jobs, and then you've got other guys that are just like, it's like beating your head against a wall. My God, like, as much as I want to keep defending Paul DeYoung, homeboy is just having a rough time.
Yeah.
And then Edmund is having a rough time.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, and this is specific to Paul DeYoung has been really hot as of late. Really hot. And then you look where his numbers are at, and that'll kind of tell you.
Look at his August numbers, though.
Is he falling off again?
Yeah, his August numbers are bad. Like, he had a good July, but his August, poor guy.
Yeah. And the thing to me that I notice is that, when he's good, you want to have him around. But, man, when he's bad, you don't want him in the lineup. Because, I mean, he's...
And anybody clamoring for Sosa needs to realize he's not better. He has a couple decent games, but his style legitimately reminds me a lot of Edmund. He's a fairly quick guy that just slaps singles. Yeah. Like, look at their OPS. It's basically identical.
Yeah.
The only difference is that DeYoung adds a little bit of pop. I would argue that, and it's like, if you look at the metrics, I think DeYoung and Sosa are pretty similar, but I think that the edge probably still goes to DeYoung slightly as far as a lot of defensive metrics are concerned. Like, granted, it's not a perfect science, but the trade-off is like, do you want a guy that just slaps singles and get on base, or do you want run production? Because the two things aren't the same necessarily, especially when you don't have guys behind you that can. Because, like, if you're going to put those two guys at the bottom of your lineup, if they're going to be your 7 or 8 hitters, if you're relying on them to just get on base for your 8 and 9 guys to get them in, that's a problem. Like, at least if you put DeYoung 8th, you've got a chance for a home run, you've got a chance for a big fly, and the guys in front of you have a better opportunity of actually getting on base.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, too, when you look at what Paul DeYoung has done. He's still pretty high up in the home run numbers on this team.
Yeah, he's got 14.
Yeah, and so that puts him ahead of, I think, Tyler O'Neill. And
No, O'Neill's got like 18, I think.
18?
I think Arenado. I think it's Arenado, Goldschmidt, O'Neill, or O'Neill Goldschmidt.
There's a
But
couple
DeYoung is
guys.
fourth.
There's a couple guys on there that you look at and you're like, "Ooh, I thought they'd be better than that," and they're not.
I don't know if I can say that.
Well, that you think you thought they'd be higher on the list is what I'm saying. Here we go. MLB. Let's change this to this.
Yeah, I mean, I think Arenado's on pace to crack 30. Goldschmidt, high 20s. O'Neill, maybe 30 if he gets on a nice little hot streak.
O'Neill and Goldschmidt are both tied with 18 home runs. Arenado has 22. And then DeYoung, who hasn't really been doing
14.
much of anything, has 14, right?
Yeah.
And Carlson's behind him at 12. Carlson is kind of who I was thinking should probably have been ahead of him.
Well, how much does Carlson have?
12.
Okay. The last month or so, I think he's hit a few. Because I remember at one point during the year, like it may have been a little bit before the All-Star break, he only had like 4 or 5, and everyone's just like, why isn't he hit? Like, I thought he was going to hit some more home runs. And then all of a sudden, it's just like he hit 2 or 3 in a week, and it's just like, oh, okay, this is nice.
Wonder if I can pull this up.
Like, I think Carlson long-term is probably like a 25, maybe 30 guy. So, in his rookie season, even if he only hits like 15, like, dude, I don't care.
Right?
Like, it's his rookie season. He's like, what, 22?
Right.
Like, you've got a really solid, like, fairly young outfield core. If he's 22, O'Neill's 26, and then I think Bader's like 27, 28 maybe. Like, that's a solid outfield that you're going to have for quite some time, especially if the numbers that O'Neill and Bader are putting up are going to be kind of like maybe your norm moving forward.
Right.
I don't think we were as surprised with O'Neill as maybe we are with Bader. And I think it's funny the amount of people over the last couple of years who was like, oh, trade him, trade him, trade him. It's like, if you look at the amount of at-bats they got in years prior, it really doesn't shock me that it's taken them maybe this long to get to where they are. But it doesn't necessarily surprise me that they're doing what they're doing.
So I got to share this picture real quick. So Steve Kramer had his son, and they're watching the podcast together.
Yes.
And you're right, Steve. He said, I'm corrupting your son. It's like, that's right. Friends don't let friends be Yankee fans. So we're teaching him to be a Cardinals fan.
Man, I wish the DeWitts would throw money around like they do, though.
Oh, the Yankees? Yes, that would be cool. The Yankees went out
just for one off season, just to see like what it's like. Like, what would happen if?
Yeah. Well, they kind of did that. I remember it's like when they had, and this lineup was ridiculous. You had Reggie Sanders and Jim Edmonds and Larry Walker in the outfield, and you had Scott Rowland at third and Albert Pujols at first. That's murderer's row. And then I believe you had Tony Womack leading off, which they picked up, which he was a really good leadoff hitter.
Speaking of leadoff, why is Harrison Bader still not leading off? Like, why? Like, yeah, I get, like, the last few games he's kind of fallen off, but you do realize what he's capable of, right? Like,
right.
I feel like if you look at the players that they have position-wise on their 25 or 26, whatever man roster it is right now,
yeah,
how can you justify having somebody else up there?
Well, I don't know that they have anybody that's, I mean, you got to try Harrison Bader because I don't know that Dylan Carlson or Tommy Edman has done, neither one of those two, in my opinion.
I think Carlson's done better as of late, but like, yeah, if you look at Edman's numbers, it's like, it's not very good. And right now, like, if you're talking about, oh, well, we need a guy leading off that can get on base, Bader's getting on base more.
Mm-hmm.
He has been.
And is he getting on base more than Dylan Carlson?
If you look at on base percentage, I probably I don't know exactly. Like, I don't have the stats right in front of me. I can pull it up.
Well, let's just say even if they're just close, whenever Harrison Bader gets on base, speed creates havoc, right? You don't necessarily have to steal with him a lot, but the threat of him being able to swipe a base makes pitchers change and split their focus. I don't know that pitchers worry about Dylan Carlson's base running prowess. To be fair, Edman, at least speed-wise, is up there with Bader. Right.
But like,
well, but he has to
the
get on
problem
base.
is the Cardinals' philosophy doesn't let those guys run that much.
It really does. Actually, I was listening to a pregame. Was that Friday evening? The pregame, and I think Mike Claiborne was doing the interview with Mike Schilt pre, and they actually talked a little bit about base stealing. And he goes, "Yeah, you don't want to steal unless your chances of getting of stealing that base is 75 to 80%. And what we're doing right now, we're right there at that 78.5. Most of the analytic guys and blah 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 blah." And I'm like, yeah, but you're only like swiping. I mean, they're running more than they used to, but they're not running a lot. And when you're, like their offensive philosophy is get guys on and then get a big hit. That's their offensive philosophy, right? Try to do damage with extra bases. And what we've seen is, especially in the past couple games, they can get guys on. What they have, 12 or 13 left on base on yesterday? They get guys on base, and then they just leave them there. They had the bases loaded with nobody out, and they couldn't manufacture a run because what they end up doing.
How many times does that happen?
Well, I think that's a hitting philosophy problem, right?
Staggering how often that happens.
I mean, hear me out here. I think that's the problem with their hitting philosophy. That what their hitting philosophy requires is guys that can do that regularly, and they don't have those guys. And my thing has always been, rather than a coach trying to force guys into his philosophy, a good coach will change and modify his philosophy to fit the team that he has.
Yeah.
Right? So rather than trying to keep forcing, so you get Goldschmidt and Arenado on, and then you've got, who do you got coming up? Tyler O'Neill. Tyler O'Neill can hit a home run. He might fit that profile.
I mean, he is hitting,
he's the best one that they've got on the team.
More than just home runs, which has been really nice to see. The issue with O'Neill is he still strikes out 30% of the time. And
a strikeout in that situation doesn't help you, right? If you strike out with the bases loaded, if that ball doesn't get past the catcher, nothing good is going to happen other than you didn't hit into a double play.
But the problem is now you set it up.
Right, and now
able to give up a run.
Right, and so you strike out, and then you come up with one out, bases loaded. Next guy up, you got Yadier Molina, right? Yadier Molina is a huge double play candidate.
It's so bad.
Yeah, so
he hits into double plays a lot.
Yeah. So you want this team and you want the staff to adjust their strategy. Now, mind you, it's too late for them to adjust their strategy this year. If they adjust their strategy and they still win some games, that strategic adjustment at this point in the game isn't going to make it enough for them to catch anybody in the division. It's not going to make it enough for them to catch anybody in the wild card. It's just not going to happen. This team doesn't have it in them because they need to win 8 or 9 or 10 in a row. They need a streak like that to get back in it, and they don't have that in them. They proved that to me when they couldn't sweep the Royals. The Royals aren't a good team. They're not. And you swept the Diamondbacks, which was what you were supposed to do. Except for that 4-game series, you didn't sweep them. Stupid.
Because they throw their B team out there.
Right. It's like, we won 3. This 4th game really doesn't matter. And it's like at the end of all the games that didn't really matter that you quit on, I bet you if you added them up, you'd be at about 11 or 12 games that you just kind of gave up on because it doesn't really matter what's this game, we'll get them next time. And then you start looking at the, standings and you're like, oh, we're 11 games out.
I'm so sick of that mindset. Because that game against the Cubs not too long ago where they gave up 6 runs in the top of the 9th and they ended up losing that game?
Yeah.
That game should be on repeat in that clubhouse.
Right.
Because that game shows you that you could turn it around that fast. So
absolutely.
Stop being complacent and just giving up on these stupid ball games because my God, and it's not even like, oh man, we're down 8. I guess it's over.
We're down 5.
Look dead. They look dead after a 2-run deficit. It's so bad. They just look lifeless. I hate it. It'll be like 3-0, and I just look at the guys in the field or look at their approach at the plate, and I'm like, they've already given up. It's the 4th inning. What are we doing? Like, it's so bad.
Yeah, it's frustrating to me, and that's, you know, and I told Teddy I would get to this. He's talking about whether or not, and let's see if I can find this. He said Schilt and Albert need to go, and it does beg the question. You know, when you talk about a team's attitude, now Mike Schilt will tell you every day of the week that they're fighting and they're scrapping, and it's like your mouth is doing this, and their actions are telling me a different story. And so it's the manager's responsibility, right? That's his job, to manage the team. And the biggest thing that he can do is keep them going. And he doesn't do that. He doesn't look like he inspires his team. And I'll tell you what, the team seems to play better when he gets tossed out of the game early. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, show some emotion.
He goes out there.
Actually want to fight, if you really want to fight for your guys, fight for your guys. Like every post game, I'm like, dude, just shut up. Just say you guys didn't have it. Like, it's like, because guess what? You didn't. It happens. Like, it is what it is. Like, sometimes you just have bad games. You could say that. You don't have to be like, oh yeah, we fought really hard. I'm like, really? Because it was 10-1. It doesn't really seem like you fought really hard. It looks like you gave up when it was 2-0 in the third. Like, what are we doing here?
Right.
Like,
and if I don't know if you've noticed this or not, but it seems like they'll get down 2, 3, 4 runs in an inning, and after that, then the errors start coming. You see guys booting balls and stuff like that, and they just fall apart. And you can't let your team fall apart. You can't. And I don't know what it takes to get them back together, but Mike Schilt's in with that group day in and day out. He has to know them. He has to be able to tell and say, okay, we need to pull everybody together in the dugout in front of God and everybody and have it out, or we need to pull everybody together and do a this ain't over. But you never really see Mike Schilt leave that chair and address his players. Right?
Man, I would love to be the manager.
It's like he's stuck.
I'd get some fire under these guys. Because I would just be too brutally honest, man.
Well,
I would
here's
just walk in
the
there
thing.
And be like, hey, you guys are sucking it up real bad right now. You know how to fix that? Stop sucking it up real bad right now.
Right.
Like, this is getting really bad. Hey, every pitcher we have on the staff, go throw a bullpen. Every time you throw a ball, it's like, be like Lou Brown. Be like, every time you throw a ball, you owe me 30 push-ups.
Yeah.
Like,
and then whenever he throws it, step up to the top step and look at him and be like, where's my push-ups?
Yeah, like throw a strike. Like, it's infuriating.
Yeah.
Like, listen, I'm not saying that I can do better. I'm terrible at, like, I haven't thrown a baseball or softball in over a year. If you ask me to get on a mound and throw a strike, though, I feel like I could probably do that. It may not be very hard, but you know what it's not going to be? A walk.
Right.
Because even if I'm only throwing like 55 miles an hour and that guy makes contact, you know who I've got behind me? My defense.
Right.
Defense can't help you if you walk a guy.
Nope. And your defense gets worse when you walk guys because they get on their heels and they get. I mean, anybody who's played ball has known what it's like to have a pitcher that's not having control, and then you're just kind of like kicking dirt and picking daisies, and next thing you know, balls hit it, and you're like, whoa! You know, I mean, balls in play keep your defense sharp.
It's like whenever we talk to Michaelis, it's just like, you know, his approach with guys at the plate. He's like, I throw strikes because, like, even when guys make contact, the failure rate is like 70%. But when you walk a guy, the failure rate is 0%.
Right.
Like, if you put the guy on base, you're literally giving them a free pass. But even if you throw strikes and they hit it, odds are they're going to fail. I wish more pitchers in our staff had that mindset of, I'm going to throw you strikes, I'm going to make you hit this ball, because odds are my defense is going to get you. Like, look at who you have. You've got Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt, Paul DeYoung. You've got Tyler O'Neill, Harrison Bader, Yadier Molina. These are guys that are Gold Glove candidates, like, a lot.
Right.
Or very well could be in DeYoung's case, because he in one full season he was a Gold Glove finalist. You've got a really solid defense behind you. Throw a freaking strike, man.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
sick of these like 2-0, 3-0 counts, and then you throw a meatball and you wonder why that gets clobbered.
Right.
Because now they're just like, I'm waiting for my pitch now.
Yeah.
Because this guy can't find the play. He's going to have to throw me a meatball. And then you do, and then it's crushed.
Right.
Throw a first pitch strike. I guarantee you the opposition is not ready for it.
Not at this point, they're not.
Like, I haven't checked the stats lately, but like for a majority of the season, the Cardinals staff led the major leagues in walks by a lot.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's probably still the case.
Oh yeah. And they're leading the league in runs walked in.
Which is the dumbest stat that you shouldn't be good at. But man, are we just the best at it.
Yeah. Boy, I forget which game it was. It was the game that they imploded against Atlanta.
Yeah.
Where
that was the game I lost my mind.
Yeah.
Because
they
I was
walked
like,
all those guys in.
When you've got Gallegos and Reyes giving up 6 runs, I'm like, this team is just, it's that bad right now.
Yeah.
Like, they're the only 2 guys in your bullpen that I trust. And when they're giving up 6 runs in a game, it's like, dude, this team just sucks right now.
and to your point, you look, they walked guys in, and then Freddie Freeman comes up, and the announcer said something to the effect of, and then this is about the time that Freddie Freeman would do damage. And do you remember what he did?
Damage.
He hit a ball that would have been gapped, but Edmundo Sosa made a really, really good play on it, leaping catch, and pulled it in. And it's like, enough is enough. And that's just to your point, right? Even on a well-hit ball that has an XBA of like 1 million, your defense, not even your best defensive player, right, jumps up and made a play for you. Trust your defense.
Yeah,
You know, we talked about that a couple years ago. # pound the strike zone.
Dude, this shouldn't be something that we have to keep reiterating.
Right?
Like, you think, like, dear anybody, like, within the Cardinals organization that happens to be watching us, show them this video. Show them our video 2 years ago when we did this.
We haven't changed.
This shouldn't be a conversation we need to have.
Well,
like, I'm not very good at baseball. I haven't been good at baseball in years. Yet, in my head, I can understand that what you're doing is not working.
Right.
Throw strikes.
And that's my biggest complaint, right? And that's my biggest complaint with Mike Shildt. When you look at this guy, fans are picking up on what he's doing and what he's not doing well.
Yeah.
There's fans, and it's not just fans. Whenever they were playing, it was Lester's start. No. It was Woodford's start. Woodford's last start. And it was on Fox Sports 1. The announcers are like, what is he doing? You can't leave your guy out there. You can't let a game get out of hand. You can't do this. And Mike Shildt just let him go, right? Because, my bullpen.
4 more runs later.
Right. And so at 3-0, he should have had Woodford out of that game. You know, you can give him a little leeway afterwards to see, okay, he gave up that run, but is anybody else going to come in? Is he putting more people on base? And as soon as he puts somebody on base, you're done, right? As soon as Reyes walked the bases loaded, that was on the 4th hitter, as soon as he loaded those bases or even walked in 1 run, you're done, you're out. I don't know who we got to replace him, but I know that Reyes doesn't have it that night.
That game was so... looking back on that game now, like, one of the reasons why I tweeted that one out was the fact that they only got, like, 1 out between the 2 of them and gave up 6 runs and walked, like, 4 guys. I'm like, that is a problem.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing? Like, 3-batter minimum aside, like, that's another thing that's stupid. I hate that rule. I really do. Because, like, if I was the manager, I'm telling every single guy on my pitching staff, like, dude, if you walk somebody, I am taking your ass out. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's at a level right now where the amount of guys that they're walking is historically bad. And they're not doing anything to fix it. They're still doing their same approach, and it's infuriating.
Right. And then the other thing is, too, you'll watch then the management. So they're not trying to fix the problem, right? You don't see any improvement, any adjustments, anything. And the guys that are doing the walking aren't guys who have been that kind of guy in seasons past. They picked something up this year that caused them to do that. And what you see is like I know you can't take a guy out after or before 3 batters, but you can get a guy up and you can get him loose so that when he gets to that 3rd guy, you're like, and you're gone.
But
right?
No,
and they don't do that.
Yeah, they just let him get through 3, and they're like, what's 4 more? Like, what are we doing?
It's the ball game, Mike. It's the ball game. 3 or 4 more runs is the ball game.
Yeah, like what Ryan said was absolutely true. He's like it's like he doesn't want to hurt their feelings. Like,
right.
Dude, they're adults. Who cares?
Right.
They're getting paid millions of dollars. Like, if they're really like if they're that insecure, they have the money to go to therapy. If they really feel the need that's messing if that's messing up their headspace, I'm not even joking. If that's messing up their headspace that much, talk to somebody.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, your job as a player is to do everything you can for your team to win.
Yes.
And if your manager takes you out because you're not doing the best job that you can do to help your team win, I don't know what to tell you.
Right. And if you take that and you put it to any other job, right? So this is why the whole mentality argument, you don't want to blah, blah, blah thing, you lose me. Because there's nobody that could underperform at their job and then get offended that they were getting smoked by their boss, even if their boss wasn't being mean. Their boss just came over and said, hey.
The problem is this generation of people and workers probably would get offended by that without much effort.
Like, how dare you tell me I'm not doing a good job? If my boss comes to me.
I've seen it, and it's awful.
If my boss comes to me and says, you're not doing a good job, I'd be like, okay, where am I not doing a good job and what can I do to do better? Right? Use that, hey, you're underperforming. Don't lie to me and tell me I'm doing a good job when I'm not, because I want to be better. Tell me how I can get better. You don't have to be a jerk about it, but be like, hey, here's where you're screwing up. And if that is a problem with these players that the management can't go to them and say, hey, here's what you need to do, and they get mad and don't want to do it, then you need to find different guys for your team, because your baseball team will never function with a group of guys like that. You'll have a bunch of baseball players, but what you won't have is a team.
Like if there's guys in that locker room legitimately that have that kind of mindset, and they're acting like divas because somebody's like trying to call them out. Dude, I don't want you on this team, man.
Yeah.
Like, as much as I love Yadier Molina, homeboy should take a day off once in a while.
Yes. Now
it's pretty evident that there are plays that he is not making that he was in the past.
Earlier in the season,
his team right now,
he was making those plays earlier in the season.
And if he's hurt, put him on the IL.
Mm-hmm.
Stop with the whole don't want to hurt his feelings. He's a legacy player, dude. I don't care. Do you want this team to win games? Because if your answer is yes,
here's my thing, and this to me is the difference between a legacy player and somebody who's just playing for themselves, right? So a guy I would point to as a legacy player would be Matt Carpenter, right? Matt Carpenter has spent his entire career with this team, and when the team said, "Hey,
you know what he's doing right now?"
What they ask him to do. I will do what I can to help this team get better. And if that means me playing second base instead of third base, or me playing second base instead of first base, if that means me pinch hitting instead of starting, I will do that, and I will do the best of my ability.
Going into the seasons, you could see it in his eyes in the interviews. It sucks because he knew, I'm not able to contribute the way that I was, but I want to be able to contribute to this team the best that I can. Like, you could see it. Like, it hurt him to say it.
Yeah.
But he took it and he moved on with it. And in times this year, he stepped up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
and he's stepped up a lot as of late.
He still hasn't been great, but there have been times where something that he did led to a Cardinal victory.
Right.
And I wish there would be more guys that had that mindset.
100%.
it's like I wish Yadier Molina would just be like, you know what? I get it. Right now it's been rough. Let's get Kiz out there for a few starts. And speaking of Kiz, holy crap, the Cardinals organization and the disrespect towards Andrew Knizner. Oh my gosh. Like, did you see what Mozeliak said not too long ago? Like, yeah, we think that Herrera's the future
just
at catcher. It's
skipped him.
Dude, what are you doing? Like,
yeah.
Dude, poor if that's true, you better package him right now in a deal like you did with Kelly. Get him out of there so he has an opportunity to play somewhere. Because if you bury this kid.
If that's really how you felt about him, he should have been out of here in a trade move.
Like he may not have been as highly touted as Carson Kelly was, but he wasn't that far off. You should have, if you legitimately think that Molina's got another year or two in him, and then he's going to give up the reins to Herrera, which at this point you better hope you've got another catching prospect in the midst, because it sounds like Yadier Molina's going to be here until he's like 50. But
at some point, right, you want Yadier Molina to retire a Cardinal, and I'll tell you what, you might have to tell him no, right? You might have to look at him and be like, Yadi, we love you, but we cannot justify this contract, and we want you to go test the market. And the market will tell.
And the thing is, I'm not going to be as upset as some people would be if he were to sign somewhere else and finish his career in a different uniform. Because at the end of the day, like, are you a Cardinals fan or are you just solely a Yadier Molina fan? It's not the same thing.
Right.
Like, are you a fan of this team winning ball games, or are you only a fan of certain guys? Like, because I feel you. Like, there are guys that have been traded, and I still kind of keep up with them because I like what they provided as a Cardinal. And so, yeah, I'll keep tabs on guys. But at the end of the day, like, are you really going to be more upset because Yadier Molina left, even if it leads to the Cardinals doing better?
Well, if you stop and think about it,
what do you want, really?
Albert Pujols is a great example of that. He is a great example of that. I love me some Albert Pujols. And the time away hasn't made me dislike him. It's made me like him more. But, you know, what he was looking for and the money he was wanting didn't make sense for this franchise.
Not at all.
And what they offered him, he would have been here, which means that Goldschmidt wouldn't, and we'd be getting whatever Albert Pujols is at first base. Because you know that they're not going to put him on the bench. You can't do that with Albert Pujols. So at some point, you got to look at it and you got to say, we got to let him go. You know, and hope that things smooth over and maybe you can bring him back for a one-day thing to have him retire as a Cardinal. But that's where it's at. And like, I don't think Yadi's done. I don't think he's done, but I don't think he can be the iron horse that he has been in his career. Right? I don't think that you can. I think if you bring him back, you can bring him back, but he can't be the catcher.
Even right now, he needs to be 60-40 at best.
And then when you get into the playoffs, have at it, buddy, because he's going to be in better shape from not burning himself out in the regular season. His numbers are going to be better because he's not going to be worn out, and he's not going to go through those stretches where he's just gassed. You watch him, you can tell when he's done, he's tired. You can tell it, and I love the drive. I love the drive. Love that feeling. It's like, no, I can do this. I love that attitude. But then there's part of me that goes, yeah. But right now, not career-wise, but right now, this guy's better than you. And you need to let him have some so that you can get better, get healthy, get rested, whatever the case may be, so that you can be that guy that we need you to be. Because right now, a Andrew Knizner is not better than a Yadier Molina, but a Andrew Knizner is better than a tired Yadier Molina. And so how do you do that? Well, one, I think with consistent at-bats, I think Knizner becomes a better player. So the fall-off isn't there. And then when Yadier Molina's rested...
You can just look at, most of the... like most of the prospect lists for Kisner, like he's definitely an offensive catcher first, and you haven't been able to see that because he's not gotten any type of playing time.
Right.
Like, it's annoying. Like, I don't know if I talked about this with you or if I talked about it with somebody else, but the way that they're using Kisner right now is almost the opposite of how they were going about it with Kelly. They were like, oh, well, we don't want to have him just sit around on the major league roster. Like, we want to make sure he gets consistent playing time. And so they kept him down in AAA, and they're just letting Kisner die as the backup and not getting any playing time. He's not getting he's not getting at bats in AAA to stay fresh. He's just sitting on the bench, getting a start every once in a while. It's like it doesn't make sense to me how you can have that type of mindset with this prospect coming up, and then you move on from him and go to your next guy, and then completely abandon that way of thinking.
Right.
And you're like, yep, we're just going to let him sit and die on the major league roster. He's not going to get enough playing time. He's probably going to lose most of his trade value because most teams are just going to see what he's done in the major leagues, and it's not great. And I wonder why. It's because he's not playing.
Right.
And so now he's not going to – you're not even going to get much for him if you do trade him. And, oh, God, like, you've just killed this kid's future. Because even if you do end up getting to move him, it's going to be tougher for him to, like, legitimately earn a shot because he's probably going to some team to just be a backup somewhere.
Right.
Because I don't think teams are going to value him the way that he was a few years ago because the kid's not getting any playing time and nobody knows what he can do.
And not only that,
I hate it so much right now.
And letting him go and doing him like they're doing him this season, letting him go whenever they do trade him or whatever comes out. If they were to trade him, they're not going to get much for him in return because
it's not going to be the same type of return as Kelly because at least with Kelly, you didn't burn him out on the major league roster and nothing happened. Like, he was still considered a pretty highly touted prospect because you treated him like one.
And he's a good ball player in Arizona.
Yeah, like, I don't know if he's still hurt, but yeah, this year he's good numbers from what I've seen offensively, and you saw what he was. He was more brought up to be like a defensive minded catcher. Like, so the fact that he's doing anything at the plate is a bonus. But with Kisner, it's like you don't know what you got because you won't give him a shot.
Right. And so I wonder too, what do we do? What do we do like we have any control, but what do we do from here on out?
Cry.
We don't really have a whole lot to look forward to. I mean, the team hasn't done a lot to inspire us as fans to think, hey, we got something coming. Because I've said this, that their shot at winning or getting in the playoffs isn't over. The window isn't closed, but I mean, it's
close.
Yeah. If you were going to go on one of those runs, the time is now. The time is now. And I think you got maybe this week and next week. And then after that.
You honestly, like, at this point, you'd have to pull a money ball. And this team would have to win 20-something games in a row.
Yeah.
Like, it's getting to that kind of bleak point where it's like, yeah, we don't even have time right now for you guys to just win every series because even then you're probably like 3 or 4 games out of a wild card. Like, you have to start sweeping teams, and a lot of teams, and I just don't see it. Like, even if you get Flaherty back, even if you get Michaelis back, it's a very tall order for them to win like 30 of their next 40 games.
Which is one of the things that infuriated me of why were they waiting? Like, it seemed to me when they went down, their plan was, we're going to tread water until those guys get back, and then we'll go on a run and we'll get it back. That was their plan. I mean, if you go back and look at it, because what'd you say his name was? Amy's the shortstop for Milwaukee. Milwaukee Adames. Milwaukee needed a shortstop, and they went and got a shortstop, and they got him like early June. And they just went for it. And the Cardinals are like, well,
all the way till the trade deadline. Like,
yeah,
you have a need. How about you address the need? Like, the Cardinals didn't need to wait until the trade deadline to address the starting pitching.
Not at all.
You realize that your starters have been out for weeks, right? And you've brought these guys up to make spot starts, and guess what's not working? These guys that you've brought up for spot starts, hey, maybe we should look elsewhere. no, we'll just wait. We'll wait until the very end of the trade deadline. We'll see what's available. And 2 38-year-old lefties. Like,
Yeah.
oh, God, why did we do this? This was a terrible decision.
Well, then you
can
look
see
at that.
it.
But, I mean, they didn't even get urgent whenever they saw that the team wasn't even trading water. If the team could have played 500 ball, we wouldn't be this far behind. But they didn't. They played sub 500 ball in the month of June. So that means that you need to get, like, the team sunk their season in June, and you let them sink the season in June because you were like, well, we want to see how the market plays out. All right. So at that point, what you're telling me is it's not about winning baseball, and it's never been about winning baseball. It's been about making money and not losing money. And right now, the Cardinals,
they're not making a whole lot of money. You see how many empty seats there are?
exactly.
It is hilarious.
I think there was like 32,000 on a Sunday day game. And I know people talk about, the pandemic and say that might play. And it probably plays a little bit. But come on.
If to be fair, if the Redbird Express was operating, would I have probably gone to at least one game this season? Absolutely. But as much work as it's going to take me to actually get to the stadium.
Well, how much is it going to cost to park?
Yeah, it's going to cost more than your tickets by a lot. Like, I have little to no desire to actually do that right now.
Right.
It's like, and it helps that I have a hobby. Like we talked about earlier, I like to play disc golf. If I have the opportunity to pay like $40 to play a tournament in St. Louis, or pay $15 for a ticket, $20 to park at a baseball game, I'm probably going to pick this tournament, dog. Like,
yeah.
I hate to break it to you right now. You know why? Because right now I'm getting way more enjoyment from that than I am watching mediocre baseball.
And that's where I'm at. I was like so looking forward to going to a game this year. After last year and everything that we went through, I was so looking forward to going to the game. And then they're like, we got Nolan Arenado. And I was like, oh, I totally need to go to a game.
Right.
Even
with that, I've had little to no desire.
Yeah. And then, like, you watch them play, and it's like, yeah, but here's the thing. If I'm going to dump $100, which is going to cost $100 for me and my wife to go to a game, it's a $100 bill.
Once you get concessions in there, yeah, absolutely. Like, you're dropping cash for sure.
If I'm going to do that, I don't want to see what you're putting out there for me to see, right? And I'll give you an example of it. My sister and this is a story from a long time ago. My sister and my cousin, who were about the same age, loved horses. Well, my grandpa had a farm, and he had a little pony named Dolly. And my sister and my cousin loved to go out and watch this, pet the horse, groom the horse, all this other stuff. They never got around to riding her, but they would do all the things, and take care of the horse, feed her sugar cubes and all this other stuff. And so one time they pretended like they were putting on a circus. Now, mind you, they're like 5 or 6 years old at the time. And so me and my friend were over at my grandparents' house, and they're talking about it, and they're like, come and see the amazing Dolly. She can do cartwheels, and she can do flips, and she can do all this. Come see the trick show and all this other stuff. And we're like, okay. And so we're playing along, right? And so we go in to see the trick show, and they go up to the horse. And the trick that they do is they have the horse, and they're like, okay, Dolly, lift your foot. And they just pick their foot up off the ground and let it put back on. And like, ta-da! And I'm like, that's how it feels to be a Cardinal fan right now. You sold us a bunch of...
sufficiently lied to.
Yeah. You sold us a bunch of hooey. Like how good this team is going to be. Time to fly, right? And then you go out there and you get this.
Time to crash. Like,
what is this? And so I can't justify spending the money to go see this. It's more fun for me to spend the money to go watch, college players do it, to watch. We drove down to Memphis. We watched Memphis Redbirds play. That was fun.
Man, dude, so like I was up in Peoria this past weekend, and we talked, like, I would have loved the opportunity to watch a Peoria game, but they were out of town. Mm-hmm. The loft that I stayed at was a block from the stadium.
Yeah, we were across the street.
Right there. It would have been fantastic to just walk over there and catch a game, and I wish they were in town. My problem was that my my idiot self played well enough to where my tee times were like in the afternoon, and we wouldn't have been able to even catch a game because I wasn't even getting back until 7:00, like 7:30 even. So it's like, but
Yeah.
that's something that I want to do in the relatively near future because they've got some heat in that lineup right now. Like they got Jordan Walker in that Peoria club. Like I want to see that kid play. I would love to go up to Peoria and watch just go up there for like a weekend and watch like a whole weekend series. Because the place we stayed at was nice. It was literally right by the stadium. It would have been such a good time. I would much rather. Isn't that amazing? I would rather spend the money to drive and lodge myself in Peoria and watch a minor league baseball game over parking in St. Louis.
Right.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Well, I asked Terry. I said we sat on the wall behind home plate, and it was $20 a ticket in Memphis.
Phenomenal.
You know, and I'm like, and it was free nacho night. So not only that, we got free nachos. Now they weren't the pulled pork nachos or whatever, the barbecue, but they gave us the free chips and cheese nachos. Good. And then I went back and
let's go, boys.
I went back and I got the nachos, right? And I just asked my wife, I said, what do you think was more expensive? Us driving down to Memphis, sitting in these seats, staying a night or two. We stayed a couple nights and went down to Beale Street and all that other stuff. And that, or going to one game, sitting in the same spot with the Cardinals, and then coming home. You know, and I'm not saying
the same spot. Yeah. Like
it's probably cheaper to drive from Memphis and take a long weekend to go. And I'm not saying that to say that the Cardinals are overpriced or anything like that, but if I'm going to dump some money on something, I'm going to make sure that I have a good time doing it. And I know myself, and I know it's not going to be fun to go watch this team get their guts stomped in by teams that are marginally better than them. On paper,
it's not great right now.
So I guess, you know, we're over that hour mark, but I guess my question is, you know, we're pretty much 2021 is out the window. There's nothing to look forward to in this season. Barring something historic or something like that. I'm open to it happening. I will jump on the bandwagon and cheer. You know, I'll be screaming my head off if this team makes some sort of miraculous run. Believe me, I would. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying realistically, there's nothing left to look forward to from the rest of this season. There really isn't.
Not really.
And so
I'll be happy to see if how Michaelis and Flaherty look if and when they do rejoin the rotation, because regardless of how the rest of the season goes, it would be nice for those guys to look good because they're guys we're going to have to count on next year. Right. So, like, I would like to see, like, okay, how's your guys' bounce back? Like, even in a season that may be lost, like what are you guys doing right now? How are you guys playing? Like I want to see some good stuff. Like, and in their minor league rehab, you know, I'm seeing some decent stuff, but like, my goodness, how many rehab starts do you actually need?
Right.
Like, I'm not a medical guy. Like, I'm not a licensed trainer, but my God, do you need 5 rehab starts?
I think Michaelis was down longer than what Flaherty was. Like, there was a lot more miles Michaelis couldn't do because of the nature of his injury.
I mean, but still, like at a point where it's just like, why can't you at least make, like, at this point, like, dude, give us 4 innings in St. Louis, and then we'll just go to the bullpen. Like, who cares? Like, we're not getting much more than that anyway. Like, at least do something that can actually benefit the club. Like,
right. And so,
I don't know. That's why they get paid more than I do.
So looking to 2022, and guys, while we change gears, if you would please go and smash that like button, hit the thumbs up. If you're watching on Facebook, you know, like the Facebook page. We appreciate all of you. We love having you guys as fans because it makes it sound like we're just not ranting to ourselves, even though we kind of are. We like to include you, and I'm reading your chats, and I'm trying to respond as I can. But go ahead and leave a like. And then if you're watching on YouTube or if you're on Facebook, if you would go over to the YouTube page, subscribe and turn the notification bell on and give us a like. So looking forward to 2022, should there be a 2022, because the CBA is coming. No, guys, don't forget about that. The collective bargaining agreement is up after this season, and these two sides don't get along. So here's hoping they are able to figure something out.
The season happens.
Yeah, they can't afford to not have a season, but I think that there's a distinct possibility. Well, no, I don't think that Major League Baseball can afford it. I think it will crush them, especially with all the things that are going on right now. But you might have a shortened season or whatever the case may be with that. So here's the thing. If you're making moves in 2022 for the 2022 season, what are the things that they need to do? What do they need to address with this team?
Middle infield.
Like both positions?
One or the other. Don't care.
Yeah.
Because, I still am of the mindset that I think Paul DeJong adds maybe a little bit more value than Edman. Right now, neither of them are great. Like, despite what anybody wants to say, like, they're both under 700 OPS. Edman has a little bit more speed. I'd argue that DeJong has a little bit of an edge defensively and has more pop. But regardless, neither of them are doing what you need offensively. Address that.
Yeah, pick one, right?
Yeah, like, I don't care. Move one to the other position if you have to. I'd argue the shortstop market is hotter. Get a high-caliber shortstop, move DeJong to second, and use Edman as your utility guy. I don't care.
Tommy Edman plays like a really, really good utility player.
And
Tommy Edman off of
you might as well just keep doing that. Like,
Tommy Edman off the bench is a weapon.
Yeah.
You know.
And then I would address the starting rotation, like, because your depth has already been tested. You need something a little bit more sure. Yeah, you hope to have Flaherty 100%. You hope to have Michaelis 100%. Wainwright's not guaranteed to come back. I don't think KK is guaranteed to come back. Maybe you take a flyer and bring back LeBlanc. He's actually been kind of a bright spot here recently for your rotation. You hope Dakota Hudson's back. You hope that maybe you can stretch out Alex Reyes. Apparently they want to do Jordan Hicks in the rotation. Honestly, watching him throw 100 plus in the rotation would be sick. If they actually think it's going to help keep him healthy, why not?
It's worth a shot, right?
It's better than not having him pitch.
But what I don't want to see is a piecemealed together rotation. Like, well, we think Jordan Hicks can do it, and we think that Alex Reyes can do it. And I was like, don't. You can have one guy that can be your, like, we're going to try this out, right? But don't do a, hey, y'all, watch this with, like, 2/5 of your
rotation.
Yeah, with 2/5 of your rotation.
Well, I mean, it's arguably 3/5 because you're not, like, Dakota Hudson's coming off Tommy John, right? Like,
yeah.
What are we expecting him to do? Like,
yeah, we don't know.
Like, Michaelis was out most of this year. What are we expecting him to do? Like,
right,
you've got a lot of this year. What are we expecting him to do? Like, it's oh my god, the entire rotation is such a question mark. And then you've got poor Carlos Martinez that, like, he's probably gone. Like, you might as well.
Oh, yeah. Carlos, I think Carlos Martinez is already.
Like, say goodbye to Carlos, which just the worst.
Ryan
he was so good.
Ryan says Stroman to STL 2022. I cannot imagine. I cannot imagine what he would be like on this team. That would be worth it for the entertainment value alone.
Are too afraid of emotion. They're never going to make that move.
Him on this team would just be must-see TV.
Times, like, I don't care. You can pull this back up if that happens, but, like, I am pretty certain that move will never take place.
Right. I feel fairly confident that he would. I couldn't see Stroman in a Cardinals uniform. I mean, I think it would look good on him. I think he would be a good fit. I think he'd be a good pitcher.
Uniforms look good on anybody. They're just solid
except
uniforms.
for John
Doesn't
Lester.
make them better players.
This is for John Lester. It just I can't.
Dude, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I'm still down for it, and I really want him to succeed in the Cardinals uniform.
I do
but,
too.
Man, he is not making it easy on me.
Yeah. No, so here's the and I guess the other thing is too, I think that maybe you have to look at if either Lester or Happ has a good stretch run,
I mean,
they
Happ
pitch
in
well
his
down the
first start wasn't terrible.
No, he wasn't bad. So I think Happ is in the lead in this case, but you've got to consider at least bringing one of those guys back. I think if you're down to Wainwright, Happ, or Lester, I think one of those three has to come back next year for the rotation.
I mean, I'd argue two.
Yeah, at least one of them. And I don't know if Wainwright will be back next year. He may retire.
The way that this team's going, I can see him going either way. I can see him going, you know what? I thought this could be our year. It just wasn't. It just wasn't it. I'm going to leave. Or it could be the other end of the spectrum, which we got decimated by injuries, but I still believe in this club. I'm going to give it one more year. Like, I could see both of those conversations taking place.
I could totally him being like, I can't go out like that.
Right.
Because if you really look at it this year, Wainwright hasn't gotten beat.
I mean,
you know what I'm
he's
saying?
only gotten beat because the team never scored for him the first half of the year.
But he hasn't gotten beat, is what I'm saying.
No,
right? He's had a couple bad games, but he's been phenomenal.
He's been fantastic. Like, he's like fourth in the major leagues, or at least in the National League in innings. Like, who would have thought that?
Yeah.
The answer is nobody.
Right. So, anyway, they've got some work to do in the offseason, and now is as good a time as any to start looking at who's going to be free agents. I think you've got to bring in free agents, and you're going to have to spend money, and you're going to have to go above that if they want to be competitive.
You've got money coming off the books.
They're going to have to we don't want to spend this much. That's a you-imposed thing, and this fan base won't settle for it. They're not going to go for
that as a crutch this offseason.
No.
Oh, it was just out of our price range. Dude, you've got money coming off, and if you really think this team's going to compete, homeboy, you better bolster it up.
And I don't think, and I know there's a lot of people out there worrying that Nolan Arenado opts out after this season. I don't think he does. I think that there's enough.
Not worried.
I think there's enough what ifs this past season, like how much better this team would have been if Michaelis and Flaherty would have been healthy. I think there's enough of that. I think that the Cardinals are at least competitive if those guys are healthy. And I think that he's smart enough to realize that. And I think he also realizes, well, I've got an opt-out the next year. So then if they don't do something after next season, then I would be really worried about him leaving. But not after this season.
I think he sees what they've got coming up. Like, they've got Gorman coming up. They've got Liberatore coming up. Even a little bit farther back, they've got Jordan Walker. They've got Herrera that they're talking about for catcher.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they've got guys that are coming up in the next couple of years. They've got a really nice young outfield core. They've got pieces, but
and that's the thing though. They had pieces in Colorado, and they just would never do anything with them. And that's what the front office can't be doing.
I mean, they just Colorado just never had pitching.
Mm-mm.
And the Cardinals have pitching. They're all just dead.
Right. They're all in the ER.
Yeah, so that just is what it is. Because here's the thing: the Cardinals, with a dead pitching staff, is still better than Colorado.
Yeah, this is true.
So it's still an upgrade, but
but man, you got to think of all
not
the
great
teams
right
out
now.
there. So I think that I'm not worried about him leaving this year. But if they go in this offseason and they don't make a significant move, and then they have another year like this, he's gone.
2020 is just going to be the year of what ifs with the Cardinals. Just too many injuries on the pitching staff. Oh man, what if Flaherty didn't get hurt earlier in the year? What if Michaelis came back and didn't get hurt again? What if Carlos didn't implode? So many what ifs in regards to the pitching and what this team could have accomplished. Because if you would have told me earlier in the year, when I made my bold prediction about Harrison Bader, that crap would be accurate in August, I'd be like, this team's fantastic. If
They're going to be leading the division
over 800. That's phenomenal. And then if you would have told me, BT Dubs, Tyler O'Neill leads your team in OPS right now. He's having a stud year, and Nolan Arenado and Goldschmidt are producing. this team must be killing it, right? Nah, dude, your entire pitching staff's gone. What?
Your
Yeah, it's
entire
just
pitching
Wainwright.
staff's
Everybody else
decimated and you're
died.
below 500. So,
Like,
anyway.
That's one silver lining that you can take away from this is that the Cardinals are one game below 500 despite that.
Right.
Like, I'm not using it as a crutch. Like, they should have gone and done more at the trade deadline. Like, they should have made moves to make this team more competitive.
Absolutely.
Because you see what some of these guys offensively can do, and you're just relying on 2 guys in the rotation to come back. Here's the fun part. There's 5 guys in your rotation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're getting 2 back, and you're what? You're hoping that you win both of those starts the rest of the year? Fun fact, that's still only 40% of the games you've got coming up.
Yeah.
You need to, right now, they need to win like 75% of those games. What about the rest of the guys in your rotation? Yeah,
Well,
you feel good about Wainwright, but the other 2 guys are still kind of like...
And like I said, if they make a move earlier in the year, then you don't have to win that many, right? You're just in a better position, and they just allowed them. Their season is like that Woodford start. They just allowed it to get out of hand way too early and a hole that's way too big, which they could have changed. They could have changed course, but they allowed it to happen, and now this is where we sit. And we're not in the NL East anymore, so we can't be in the thick of it in the NL East, which we would be, by the way. Which
is hilarious, but not the point.
Right. All right, guys, that's all we got for you. I feel like we talked your ear off. It was a good time.
Just ranting about the patheticness that is the current play from the Cardinals.
I hope our voices kind of echoed some of your sentiment. If not, these things are going to be up. Go ahead, leave comments and stuff like that. We love the interaction. Thank you all for talking.
Yes.
I love being able to pull up things and share them with everybody. So, thanks for joining us. You've been watching The Usual Suspects. I'm Brad.
And I'm Aaron.
And we'll catch you next time, guys.